Eternal Father, we thank you for this another day. We thank you for allowing us to assemble once again, Father. We thank you that you brought us through the holidays safely and that we're allowed to just continue to lift and praise your holy name. Father, as we prepare this evening to do the will of the county, we just pray that you would bless us, that send us wisdom from above, that we'll do the right things, the things that are pleasing in your sight. Father, we pray a special prayer upon the sheriff's family this evening, that you'll bless them in a mighty way, that they'll know that you're there always and that whatever comfort they need will come from you. Father, we lift you, we praise you, we ask a blessing upon this county for that you would continue to guide us, that we'll, with the wisdom and knowledge, that we'll do the things that are pleasing in thy sight. Pray upon this great nation, pray upon the world, Father, that you would bless us, that we can all come together on some accord and the fussing and fighting will cease. Someday, Father, when this life is over, we just pray for home in thy kingdom. We'll ask these blessings in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's do the roll call. Everybody, I guess, has noticed that we got a new voting program that's a whole lot faster. Thanks to Mr. Halbach and Teresa McFadden. You can't? Well, Mr. Halbach, they want bigger letters on the... you're going to have to make the letters a little bigger. This is the first night that he just got it installed. Jimmy, are you still confirming? All right. Okay. It shows 21. Okay, the next item is to approve the agenda. Before we approve the agenda, under 8, election appointments and confirmations, we need to delete G, L, and N. L and N was already taken care of last meeting, and G, I'm going to do that appointment in March. Well, no, this is the agenda that you got originally. That's why I just wanted to officially do it. You still got your old agenda? Okay. But anyway, under reports, county officials standing and special committee, under B, we're going to add a report, the jail review committee report from the chairman, the committee members, architect, and construction manager. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? Let's vote, please. All right, let's have the vote. Okay. All right. Item 6. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Is there any additions or deletions to the minutes?
Move to be approved.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make not necessarily a correction, but add a little additional information on Resolution 2011-49. It's on the 5th page. And this is where we approved the resolution increasing the dollar amount for bids.
Yes.
And I think that we need to add, after Coffee County government, the amounts,
Okay.
which are from $5,000 to $7,500.
Okay.
So I'd like to add that following the end of the sentence there with Coffee County government.
Okay. Any other additions? Or we need a second. Okay. Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? Let's vote on that, please. Okay. All right, let's have it. Have the count, please. One more confirm, okay. 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 What? All right. Under 8, election, appointments, and confirmation. Roxanne?
Notaries. Carla H. Easton, Mildred A. Floyd, Marcus A. Hill, Timothy Kilgore, Marcia K. Martin, Jenny Matlock, Reba J. McBride, Cherry R. Olive, Susan R. Prince, Cameron L. Ray, Corey Rigney, Loretta J. Rogers, Juanita M. Ruff, Vicki Spelling, Karen Tackett, Sherry Teal, Tammy Townsend, Jamie S. Trimble, Mitch Umberger, Jana Van Zant, Joshua W. Wells, Rosemary Womack, Heather Hatchett, Frida D. Tudor, Cynthia A. Cheatham.
Entertain?
Move.
Okay. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. All right, let's have a count.
21.
Okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Roxanne.
Purchasing, B is Purchasing Commission. Mayor's appointment, the members will be Virgil Alford, Rush Frickin, Ann Frisbee, Wilma Thomas, and Mayor Pennington.
Entertain a motion? Second. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. All right, let's have the count.
2019.
Okay. All right. Next item.
Next item is B, Beer Board. The members will be Bobby Bryan, Jimmy Bradford, Tim Morris, Virgil Alford, and Barry West.
Entertain a motion.
So move.
Second. All right, thank you. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. Let's have the count.
18 yes.
Go ahead, Roxanne.
Okay, D is County Coroner, will be Dr. Albert R. Brandon.
Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. All right, let's have the count. Okay.
Okay, the next is Rural Roads and Bridges. Just rural.
Mr. Chairman, the Rural Caucus would like to put in nominations for Rural Road and Bridge, Commissioners Fan, Morris, Alford, West, and Norton.
Is that in form of a motion?
Yes, sir, I'll put that in form of a
Okay.
motion.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. Waiting on Robbie. All right, let's have the count.
17 yes.
Okay. Okay, Roxanne? When you,
F is Agriculture Committee, that's rule.
The Agriculture Committee would like to put in nomination Rennie Bell for that position. He'll be replacing Mr. Duckett, whose term is expiring.
is that in form of a motion?
Yes.
Move it be approved.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, let's vote, please. Ms. Fan, is it not working? Thank you. All right, let's have the count, please.
20 yes.
20 yes, okay.
H, Service Officers. We have only one, which is Frank Reese.
I'll entertain a motion on Frank Reese. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, let's vote, please. All right, let's have the count. 21. Okay.
The next one is I, the Planning Commission. Two terms expire, and they will be Carol Willis and Paul Elam.
I move it be approved.
Thank you. Do we have a
Second.
second? Second. All right, thank you. Any discussion? If not, let's vote, please. Commissioner Ricken? All right. Let's have the count, please.
21.
Okay.
Okay. J, Board of Zoning Appeals.
Mr. Chairman, the Rural Caucus would like to nominate Mr. Lowell Duke, Mr. Kevin Sapp, and then myself. I serve as an associate member and only attend when there's a lack of a quorum.
Okay. Is
Move it be
strictly-
approved, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Commissioner?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. Good deal. All right, let's see. There you go.
21.
Go ahead, Roxanne.
K is Jail Inspection. The, law enforcement committee.
Commissioner Thomas?
Okay, we'd like to recommend Chris Byrd, Mayor Pennington, Robert Gillum, Lee Duckett, Ann Frisbee, Rush Bricken, Tim Morris.
Okay, is that in form of a motion?
Second.
All right, second. Any discussion?
Jail Inspection.
Jail inspection. Okay, so you're going to change your, instead of Rush Bricken. Okay. All right. And you got that in form of a motion now with that change? Do we have a second? Thank you. I think you'd already done it. Thank you. We appreciate that. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. right, let's have the count.
17 yes.
Thank you. Okay.
M, Adult Oriented Establishment Board. Members are Gary Johnson, Alan Sweeten, Virgil Alford, Donnie Thomas, and Charles Harris.
I'll accept the motion to accept.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. Well, that was quick. That's good. 20 yes, is that what you, okay? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Roxanne.
Okay. We're down to O, and it's the EMA Board.
Okay, we have two appointments here. One is the rural. Do we have a rural caucus?
Like to nominate Kerry Farrah and Jimmy Floyd.
Okay. Kerry Farrah and Jimmy Floyd, okay.
Second motion.
What we got, okay, we got one more. We got Manchester.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
And Manchester caucus? Oh, okay, thank you. Now, I'll take that second. No, okay. Well, and then Barry's going to second it again. Okay. Any discussion? No, theirs is not off. These are only just replacing ones that's coming off. As they come off, we replace them. They don't all come off same time. Okay, let's have that. Let's go ahead and vote. Waiting on Commissioner Byrd.
Yes.
20 yes, okay. All right. Ms. Patton, item 9, reports.
Item 9, Director of Budgets and Accounts. Well, she just told me she doesn't have one.
Okay. All right.
And so we'll go down to B,
Yes,
which is a Jail Review Committee report.
okay, from the chairman. Okay. And the committee member, architect,
And
and also the construction manager.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll just get it started, and then I'll turn it over to these guys. Where we generally are is we have I don't know what percentage design. I think we're going to call it an 80% design, but I don't know that that's exactly accurate or not. But we have a pretty good design concept and understanding. And we have our first budget estimate for the cost. Now, I want to be crystal clear on the numbers that you're going to hear about the cost is what I think of as a shotgun number. It's not etched in stone. It certainly is going to move a little bit, but how much it's difficult to predict, but I'll let the construction manager talk to that. So, Mackie, you want to go first?
Well, Mackey is the architect, though,
Yes,
right?
I'm sorry.
Not-
Mackey's the architect.
Just to let the audience know.
With Centric, yeah. He's with Centric out of Nashville. He's our architect on this effort. He's the guy doing all the pretty drawings.
And he does have the drawings and the floor plan.
We actually have them, I think, on the screen,
Okay.
so if we could go to that floor plan.
All right. Yeah, this new system you can do quite a bit with.
Just to get everyone up to speed on the floor plan, this is schematic level plans. It's been approved by the sheriff's office. It's been approved, we think, by the jail committee, but since the sheriff was on that committee, they made him sign twice. So it has been approved by the jail committee. We reviewed it with TCI, Tennessee Corrections Institute, and they've given us a verbal approval. We've submitted those drawings officially to them. As soon as we get that letter in hand, we'll share it with the county to put in your files for future reference. But just to give you a broad view of this plan, there's a lot that goes into the sheriff's office, but really it's administrative functions, booking and intake, and then housing. If you look at that block, I guess, at the upper right-hand corner, that's the administrative building. That includes all the sheriff's offices, all his administrative functions, all the support functions. In the middle of that building is booking and intake. And then the two buildings you see at the upper left and lower right are the two housing units. And each pod holds 50 inmates, so each building would hold 200. So two buildings at 200 each is our 400 beds that we designed for. One of the requirements was a future 200-bed unit to get us up to 600. So you can see in the lower left is that future housing location. We also understand that sometime in the future there's a courthouse plan. So our thoughts are above that building you see on the upper left would be the courthouse. So as you enter the site, you will kind of have a quad set up where you can enter the sheriff's office or the courthouse. And the little dotted line you see between the housing unit and the sheriff's admin building is a secure corridor that will take the inmates to the courthouse in the future. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, I guess, how the plan's laying out. If we go to the next slide, just to show you what some elevations are looking like. We kind of view the sheriff's administrative office as a county office. So you will see it at the front. It's the brick veneer building. And then the two housing units are just precast concrete. They're the more utilitarian looking buildings. So that's kind of where we're at with plans and elevation, and we wanted to get everybody up to speed on kind of where we were in the process, and I can answer any question. And we're trying to be, you see Chris's notes he added to the plans. They are secure buildings, so we're trying not to put, I guess, too much information out there just for security, but I can answer any questions if there are.
Okay, and this is strictly for the commissioners too. Any commissioner have any questions for the architect?
Thank you. We are at 76,000 square foot total. No. The three buildings that you see is 76,000.
Any other questions for the architect?
The design, is it to, with the, where the cells are at, is it going to be designed to support future growth on the same piece of property?
Yes. Well, on this, I guess we can go back to the floor plan, maybe easier to show. The housing units themselves are built as pods, and they are separate units. So if you look at this plan, it's Lincoln. You see that outline of a building at the lower left-hand corner. That's your future housing on the same site. And the thought has been you never will outgrow more than 600 beds, but you could keep building these 200-bed housing units on the site to keep, you could go up to 800, 1,000, but we think 6 is probably the total.
May not have, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask a question again?
Any question you want, Commissioner? That's what this time's for.
Is it designed to go on the same floor? Is it designed to go up? What
It's
is?
designed to go on the same site, not go up structurally.
Okay, so
We
we're
have
not.
2-story housing units, and that's as high as they're
That's as high
designed.
it will go. So we're not designing it to actually,
It'd be a high-rise housing.
right, that type of
Right.
program.
Mackie, in regard to the design, of course, you're dealing with the design concept here, and I'm sure the construction manager will deal with locating questions and so forth. Is this design concept and so forth at minimum standards?
As far as TCI guidelines go?
Yes.
Yes. TCI requires 25 square foot per inmate. We do have double cells, which means 2 people in every cell, and it is at the total square footage of each cell is at 84. So once you take out the bunks and the toilets and the shelf, the little writing shelf, which they're required to have, we've got, I think, exactly the 50 square foot required.
Okay, the 84 square feet is a change that was made, was it not, by TCI where they reduced down?
Exactly. TCI used to have a higher standard, and ACA, American Correctional Association, had a different standard. They passed recently a resolution that they would meet the ACA, which is a national guideline. So actually their square footage reduced, which we're showing.
But in the design concept, all aspects of it are based on a minimum standard starting point, correct?
That's correct.
Now, one thing, just in regard to that, I've always expressed as far as my personal feelings is that we build this totally at minimum standards. And any time we exceed minimum standards, you know, what I would be looking for personally is the justification that shows where we have long-term cost savings associated with that exceeding the minimum standard, whatever it might be, if it's in regard to security. And of course, I know one aspect of that is its long-term personnel costs, which that's a definite concern to me, since it will probably far exceed these original construction costs. And I think it's a good business decision to spend what's necessary there to get you, long-term cost savings. But other than that, I certainly hope you and our construction managers looking at meeting minimum standards and not exceeding that unless we find full justification for it.
You're absolutely right, Bobby. One of the things we've always talked about doing is trying to find ways to duplicate, if we could, multi-purpose rooms. PCI requires a place for chapel. They require a place for recreation. They require a place for education. We have all that in one room. So it's a multi-purpose type room. Instead of building a room that's only used once a week for each of those functions, we're doing it at one place. So we'll continue to do that as we go through the design process to fine-tune it as best we can.
Commissioner Chance, or you want to say?
Yeah, I was just curious, from the time that a notice to proceed is issued, what is your duration of construction?
Well, it's a good segue to our construction manager.
Okay, thanks.
Well, come on up and just join him, and maybe both of you can stay up there in case we have other questions. We'll have to get back up.
We're looking between 16 and 18.
If you don't mind, introduce yourself and the company you represent. So you're being taped right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we're going to hold you to what you say here.
Okay. I'm Elvis Butler with Pell & Associates Construction. We're looking between 16 and 18 months from the time that we're released to start construction.
One of the things we did talk about at our meeting with the jail committee is we do have a CM on board early. One of the advantages to that is having the ability to do early release packages. So if we get a site package done early, he can start that before we get total drawings completed. So anything we can do to expedite it, we will. So it's good to have the team together.
Okay, since we got them both up there, commissioners, is there any other questions for either one of them? So just take.
I'd like to go ahead and give some information. I don't want to steal your thunder or anything, but I want to go ahead and all the commissioners have in front of them a sheet that has the budget numbers on it, and I want to go ahead and just address those straightforward. The bottom line on this piece of paper is $19,980,080.
And this is the first time out with
this. Yeah, this is the first we've seen of it. 4 o'clock we saw these numbers. I want to be clear about this. There's some things that are not included in that number. The land cost is not. The architect fee is not. The detail, we've talked about a 2-bay maintenance shop for the sheriff's vehicles, the deputies' cars. The cost of that is not included, and what they call FF&E, which is basically the furniture and computers and stuff in the administrative portion of the building. All of the stuff associated with the jail and the security systems and fire systems, all of that's included. It's just the furniture, and the reason those aren't included, the furniture's not included because we don't know at this point how much of the sheriff's department stuff is reusable. We're going to reuse as much as we can. I don't know what shape their furniture's in. I don't know how old their computers are. I mean, there's a lot of things we don't know about. And we are going to reuse as much of that as possible, but certainly some of that's going to have to be replaced. And the architect fees is just not, that's never part of this estimate. We haven't decided for sure to buy the land or not. It's not in there. And like I said, the maintenance shop, the total of those items, as best estimate, is about $2.5 million. So if you want to add 2 million to that number. That's what we're looking at for a first shot out of the box estimate. And we hope from everything that we've been told by our professionals is that it's the high water mark. This is the high water mark. It should come in under this number, but I don't want to can't guarantee that, but that's what we're targeting. So
That's based on their past performance, I think they said today, didn't
Yes.
they, Commissioner?
And so, looking at all of these numbers, I'm sure there's going to be questions. So,
Commissioners, this is strictly for you.
I've got a question. What is Division 1?
Division 1 is everything on the administrative side and everything that normally is not picked up in a trade package, like cleaning of the building, sweeping floors, equipment cost to move various materials around, dumpsters, office trailers, things like everything from supervision to project management on that.
Similar to the mobilization fees on a, is that
Actually, I don't even have a mobilization fee in here.
also, I guess this is just more of a general question, maybe not for the contractor or the architect, but is it going to be, when it's contracted, is it going to be contracted with a not to exceed lump sum, or is it going to be line item so that if you don't exceed, let's say for concrete, you only use 80% of the concrete you think you're going to use? Is it billed line item, or is it billed as a lump sum total project?
Actually, the contract we have is if we agree upon a price, it is a guaranteed maximum price not to exceed.
Okay,
So-
so is that similar to what they call a GMAX
Right.
contract? Okay, thank you.
What's not spent goes back to you.
Commissioner, did you need to know about any other, or do you want them to explain the other divisions, or? Commissioner
Division
Kennedy?
1 wasn't labeled. That's
Huh.
why. Division 1 had no
Okay, did you
description
want them to
beside it. So
explain the other stuff, what's in them, or?
I'm satisfied with that. I was just curious because
Okay.
Division 1 had no line item next to it.
Anybody else need any of those divisions? Okay. Commissioner?
This is another separate question. It's for the architect. Are you being hired to stay around then and see that the building is met to your specifications exactly?
Yes,
I mean, are
construction
you our
administration.
go-to guy to see that it's being done?
Construction administration is part of our contract, yes.
Is that for full-time oversight, or 3 days a week, or 4 days a week, or is it full-time?
I think it's minimum once a month, and once a week will probably be back and forth. So we're kind of on call as needed, but we're not manning the site full-time.
Thank you.
Elvis's guys will be, but not us.
Yeah. Elvis will be there, his man will be there full-time.
Yeah, I sort of told Chris I'd bring this up too. I have looked at a lot of the facilities similar to this that my company has built in the recent years, and the cost estimate I see here really falls right in line with what I would have seen as the cost. I think it's within a few $100,000 of the number I gave you last night without having seen any of it. So I'm not surprised with it. It's about what you'd expect for this kind of a facility.
I think it's good to have a double check.
that gave me a good warm feeling when I saw these numbers too. I said, oh, it's an agreement. Well, warmer.
What I'm going to do, I'm not going to just recognize you. Once a commissioner ceases to talk, any other commissioner can jump right in and ask questions. I won't have to call on you. Just go ahead and ask questions. That's what we got them here, and that's what the stayed over for, so they can answer any questions.
Elvis, could I ask you in regard to the siding of the physical buildings, what has been done so far in regard to site selection upon the site that we have as far as for the buildings themselves?
They had a preliminary site investigation on it. They had some borings done in, I think, 6 locations. They gave us a pretty good idea of what's out there. Then I had 2 site contractors themselves, people that do this type of work. One came down, I think, Tuesday of last week, and Randy met a gentleman out of Lewisburg on Saturday. And both of them gave us prices based upon what we gave them to do, as far as linear footage of utility lines to run to the road to get service to the building. What we felt like would have to be done as far as undercutting of the site to get stable conditions on it. Other than, there's going to have to be some more borings so that the architect and the civil engineer can properly locate the building on site. But they've had a good idea of where it's going.
The other thing, Bobby, that we've done, one of the questions, I guess, from this committee was wetlands, checking into that a little bit closer. We had two independent, one being St. John Engineers, our civil group, and then also the PSI, the guys that did the geotechnical, went out and did 2 studies. They both came back with basically the same report. There were, and I'm talking in layman's term, I think you have to have the right soils for wetlands, you have to have vegetation, you have to have standing water, and they found 4 areas on the site that met those, but necessarily wasn't, I guess, delineated as wetlands. We had Scott outline those areas on our site plan, and then we laid out the building just to see if we could lay out this building and not touch those areas. So that's what we did. The building fit, future expansion fit, the future courthouse fit, driveways, parking lot fit. We had an area that you guys can subdivide in the future for retail out front. So what Scott's doing now is further developing that. Then he's going to meet with TDEC, the environmental guys, to see here's where we think we may have an issue with wetlands. Here's where we're proposing to put the buildings. And hopefully TDEC says as long as you're not touching those areas, we're good and we'll move forward. So that's kind of something else that's in the works there.
How many acres did they find on the wetland side? Do you?
3, I think. 3.
Is that 3 acres? Okay. We just need that out for the public to hear.
So 3 acres out of 42, correct?
Yes.
Was it fully delineated, or was it partially delineated?
It wasn't delineated at all. It was just an area where they saw, we had a rain on Friday, they were out there on a Monday, so they saw the sand and water, they saw the vegetation, and looking at the maps, I guess the soil was suitable. So none of it's been delineated, none of it shows up on any maps we have, but just them walking the site, they, I guess, eyeballed 3 areas that were possible. So we're trying to stay away from them just in case.
So without delineation, how can we determine just 3 acres?
That's based on the little cloud around the areas that they found on site. It added up.
Okay, so that's just the actual, what they consider to be hydric soil series, not the partially hydric soil series there throughout the rest of the area.
You're over my head.
Okay, thank you.
I think Commissioner Bricken.
Well, somewhere be sure all the commissioners are reminded of in this project. Not only, this has been referred to as the Coffee County Jail, but it's Coffee County Jail and Sheriff's Department, okay? And the possibility, especially when we get down to numbers and costs, that the Sheriff's Department can function where it currently is, and the Sheriff agrees. I mean, a lot of counties have an away jail that's fully functional, and the Sheriff's Department is at a different location. So over the next month, with certainly if costs and considerations, that might be a possibility. And I don't want anyone not to be kind of aware that is a conceptual consideration. So just want to throw that out.
The operational benefit of having the pods was emphasized at the very beginning, and safety of the jailers, and a decrease possibly in the number of jailers per prisoner. Is that still, and could you go back to the floor plan and walk us through how that takes effect?
Absolutely. It may be better for me to point at this one rather than look up on the screen. Elvis Beer, Vanna.
Commissioner Byrd, is that all your notes that's taped to that?
Those were my notes.
Okay.
Can you see what I'm, basically upstairs is a duplicate of this. We have stairs going up and a mezzanine level. This area, this is just the first floor, but on the second floor is the observation tower. That's the satellite officers are up there looking. Basically, we're thinking it will be 1 or 2 people able to watch these 200 inmates. So it's a very efficient layout. you've got 2 guys max on this side, 2 guys max on that side, or 2. One could watch one side and one the other. So it all comes down to how the sheriff's guys want to operate. But anytime you can get 2 guys watching 200 inmates, it's a pretty efficient plan. And it's the conical design that we talked about, where basically if you're standing here looking, you can see the whole housing unit. So that's the idea. What we're thinking right now is 75% are male, 25% are female. So we're thinking this pod can become female, and the way it's designed is solid walls. There's no sight and sound separation is what you have to have. You can't talk to each other. You can't pass notes through something. So that's a solid wall all the way around. So this would be an easy place for them to say, okay, this is going to be my female pod. Then as they grow and build this unit, this whole housing unit becomes the female pod. So it's easy to separate classifications.
Question for Rush. If you took the admin portion out, you could still build that and have a place where you could add admin at a later date or something like that.
I think the proposal is the dark line you see here is the secure perimeter. So everything below that is the secure housing unit. I think what Rush is proposing is all these functions, which is investigation, which is the sheriff's office, the admin, could be somewhere else. And operationally, that's a question, I guess, for the sheriff's guys. But that's kind of the line we're looking at, is half of the admin building would be safe.
In reference to what Commissioner Byrd said from the Jail Review Committee and Commissioner Bricken, we plan as a committee to go over this budget and fine-tune it as much as we can, and certainly the separation of the sheriff's office and the jail would be a part of that. However, I would like to mention that Sheriff Graves, in our last meeting last week, said that it would save very little to separate those two.
I guess I have a two-part question, but one dealing with the proposed budget, and I understand it's just a proposed budget, and the geotechnical report and how it ties back in. A moment ago you mentioned how there may be a need to do more soil borings. In the current geotechnical report, it notes weak soil conditions could lead to a significant amount of undercut and incompetent soil replacement, resulting in increased site work costs. Are those built into this budget that we see today? And that's under I guess that'd be found in...
That's down in 3132, siting.
Earthwork?
Earthwork.
Okay, and that's the $413,974 to
Yes.
prepare the site to actually be built on?
Right.
Okay, so that adds an extra $500,000 to the site itself.
Well, I think that was pretty much standard in this area. We talked again to Scott, and we looked at some existing, I guess, buildings that were going on, and 4 foot of undercut and fill seemed to be the norm, so that's what we used on their building.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the geotechnical report had, and I guess the follow-up on that would be incorporated in, and that was already has been determined was already incorporated in as well.
The local site contractor that I obtained prices from gave me 2 options. One to do 2 foot of undercut, one to go 4. I elected to go the 4 foot route so that it would be covered. We feel like this is the worst case scenario for a budget.
Thank you.
And in regard to that, the general lay of this property we're looking at, you might describe it a little bit as far as there's a lot of crest part to this property, and a lot of general drainage to this property. And doing the undercut, when you talk about 4 foot and so forth, I don't want people to get confused and thinking you're having to go in here and because this particular site take out an extraordinary amount of dirt in order to suit and set a building. I'm not a construction person necessarily, but I know if you go throughout this county, as you're saying, in building sites just about anywhere, you're going to have to undercut so much and then establish soil that you can get a compaction rate on in order to be suitable for the building. So From what I've seen in regard to this site and what you're saying, we do not have an extraordinary situation here. Is that correct?
In my opinion, I don't think so.
Mr. Pettigo made a comment here to me that Deerfield, out on the Woodbury Highway, the new school that the county built, it was 28 inches they undercut. Is that right, Mr. Pettigo? Okay.
Well, from what
Just
you-
as a reference.
If you look at the soil report that PSI did in the boring, you've got 1 foot of topsoil that you're going to have to take off anyway.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter, you can't use the topsoil.
Mhm.
So then it depends on what you have under there
Mhm.
when you do these additional borings. When you finally locate that building, then you can see what you have. You may
Right.
have 2 feet, you may have a foot.
Right.
I don't know what's going to be.
I think he was just mentioning that just as a reference out on Woodbury Highway where that school is.
Well, I think Bobby's correct too. Most of the sites that we evaluated, and it's been over a dozen now, we saw wetlands, we saw a wet area in almost all those sites. This site does have a crest. We're on a hill, and we were thinking, just walking it, this is a much better site than what we found everywhere else. When we got the geotechnical, and we did do 6, which isn't a whole lot on 40 acres, but we did 6 borings just to see what was there. We found some of the same soils, which is just the nature of
Common for this area?
It's common for your area. So what we're finding is 4 foot's going to be the max, but we may, once we locate the building and do more borings where the building's actually going to be, it may be the 18 inches. It may be 2 feet. It could be half that. So worst case scenario is what we're budgeting initially.
I've got just one of those crazy questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner. No question is crazy.
You know, in the times that we're in, how much subcontracting do you do for local vendor perspective?
We're actually going to take prices on every trade out here, everything that's in there. We will price the concrete ourselves as well. We'll turn the price in on it. 1, to protect the budget, and 2, to protect the schedule, because the concrete is what drives the schedule on these jails.
I'm always one of these people that if, in these types of projects, if we can keep the money's being generated locally, keep the money local. So in these types of times, I'd like to see as much of it done with local, if it's anything that can be. And I know that you have to take bids and all those, do those various things, but I really like to see the money stay home.
We're going to encourage as much local, and we're going to actually have what's called job fairs to try to get local participation to come out and be more active in it.
That will be announced in the paper, just to make everyone aware, and then have the job fair to get all the subs involved and make them aware of what's coming, just to make sure they know it's there.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're ready to proceed to the next item. Ms. Roxanne? Number 10. Jail site selection, Commissioner Byrd.
Yeah, the unfinished business, the last commission meeting, I put forth a motion, and Eric had some friendly changes to it. That motion and how we directed us to move, we couldn't really do it in that exact way, because I was finding out, because we told in the motion, we said we're going to get a letter from TDEC and we're going to get a letter from the Corps of Engineers. I didn't know enough about the process. That's not how the process works, the way Mackey and then described it. So I just want to be clear that I know that we had a motion and we voted on it, but we are not going to be able to follow that motion to the letter. I don't know what we need to do about that, if we need to redo the motion. I don't know. I want to be just absolutely honest and crystal clear that what you and I proposed is just not doable.
Exactly what's not doable about it.
The process doesn't call for us to go and get a letter from TDEC. That's not how the as I understand it, that's not how the architect and the site selection, what they talked about is you select a piece of land, then you select a specific location on that landing, then the architect contacts TDEC, and they come out, and TDEC gives an initial ruling, and if they don't have any problems, then that's the end of it. But if TDEC comes out and there has some problems, then the architect and TDEC address those concerns. There's not a letter. And as far as the Corps of Engineers doesn't, I didn't hear their name mentioned at all. So, the motion that we passed last time, we were unable to.
Well, let me talk to the parliamentarian. You heard this. So what is the procedure if we want to go forward?
This is a procedure where that you will need to, anyone who voted on the prevailing side, since the motion passed, that means anybody who voted yes, can make the motion to reconsider that motion. Anybody can second it, and then you as a group will have to vote on whether or not you want to reconsider it. If the motion to reconsider passes, that puts that motion back on the floor, and at that time anyone can amend it by deleting things that need to be deleted or adding to it things that need to be added, but those would be in the form of amendments. So the first step would be pass the motion to reconsider. Then the chairman will open it up for debate. That's when you can make your amendments to it.
I'd actually like to have a little bit more discussion first, if it's okay.
That's fine.
It's not uncommon to have a site delineation done or performed before someone purchases land. Has anybody specifically spoke with TDEC or the Corps of Engineers? Who did you speak with exactly, sir?
I did. Scott St. John spoke with TDEC.
I talked to TDEC today, and they weren't aware of anybody calling them. They haven't spoken with anybody, and they are unaware of the site as it stands right now. So I'm just curious. What my major concern is selecting a site that is surrounded. I've got the report thanks to Commissioner Morris. And after speaking with Mr. St. John, my major concern is that we purchase a piece of property that has known wetlands on 3 or 4 boundaries, has all partially hydric soils contained there within, and that we're going to end up in a situation where we're purchasing land with unknowns involved, variable unknowns that we have no control over, and get ourselves into a situation very similar to the middle school site several years ago. And that's my primary concern, because once you buy it and once you start, you can't stop. And that's been my concern all along. And at this point in time, with the report that I've read, I just want to go on the record saying that I strongly recommend not proceeding with the current site until a full delineation is done on the footprint of the site to determine, and TDEC and the Corps will do this, to determine the nature and extent of any present wetlands before we proceed purchasing the land. Typically, whenever they receive a delineation and request a concurrence on it, they can turn that around inside just a few weeks, 1 to 2 weeks typically. And what they would do is they would come on site and verify the delineation itself, make sure that the boundaries are accurate, and then issue a concurrence letter saying that they concur with the findings. Based on the report that's been done now, I don't believe that they would concur with the findings. There's not enough data there to concur. So that's my concern. It's been my concern since day one. And if we vote for it, we vote to approve it, then we're walking into a potential situation where we have unknowns right now that we can't offset.
Commissioner West?
Do you agree or concur with what Commissioner Byrd said, that it's in the wrong order according to that first motion that we made?
No, it's not in the wrong order. I do not agree with that because in my line of business, it's not uncommon for someone who's about to purchase land and spend $20+ million to have a geotechnical report done and a full delineation performed beforehand so they know exactly what they're walking into.
So if these guys go out there and say, okay, here's where we're going to build this thing, they will do the work then.
They could have a full delineation, and that's actually what I would recommend is knowing where the footprint's going to be, have a delineation performed at that point in time, and then get the concurrence from TDEC that we're okay. And then also on top of that, not just the footprint, but any areas where there's going to be spoil materials or anything like that that you could adversely impact anything, delineate that out and make sure that's safe as well. Because we do not want to get involved with wetlands. It's something that we do not want to get involved with. The federal jurisdiction over that and the state jurisdiction will not bend.
What's the will of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear the construction manager come forward and comment in regard to this. He is the professional that we have hired, and I'd like to get his professional opinion in regard to this.
The construction manager? Or do you need the architect? Well, why don't we just get them both up?
Both would be fine.
Yeah. Looks like they come as a set anyway. So.
We don't want Mackie to get lonely up there.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we may be saying the same thing as what Mr. Chance is saying. From what I understand talking to Scott is we've laid out the site, a preliminary site layout plan. He then develops that into a full site layout plan, meets with TDEC and says, here's where we're planning on putting the building, here's where our parking lot's going to be, here's where the drives are going to be, and over there is where I saw water standing. I'm staying away from it. And then TDEC says, I agree with you, that is wetlands. It's delineated, stay away from it. Is that what we're talking about?
That's partially correct, yes. But if we're already at 80% plans, we've got that, right? We've got that layout and that site plan, correct?
We've got a building schematic layout. We've got a site layout, preliminary site layout plan, yes.
I think that it would be acceptable by the regulatory authorities to use that preliminary site plan to fully, or to at least delineate the areas, because if you've got a preliminary plan, you're fairly certain you know where it's going to go.
Right.
Barring any major geotechnical issues such as bedrock in the wrong place or something like that, that's where it's going to go. Am I correct on that?
That's correct.
Then I think that a preliminary site plan just like that is more than enough to be able to have a full delineation done on those areas. And that's in my professional opinion, Bobby. And that is more than enough to be able to do that and be able to get concurrence from the Corps of Engineers and TDEC.
Which is what Scott's working on now, and he's working on getting TDEC to the site, and it was under my understanding that he has talked to TDEC. I don't know who that is he's spoken to, but I can find out. So I think that's working the way that you're thinking. I think when we say full delineation, approval from Corps of Engineers and TDEC before we move forward, to Scott that means he's got to have all of his site work done. He's got to submit it for someone to approve it. And we're done with design before you guys tell us where the building's going to be, and we need information for our engineers. Our civil guys don't know what to design for until we say, okay, the building's going here, and here's what your soil conditions are.
Right,
so that's what Chris is saying. We're kind of jumping back and forth.
If you have that plan right now, at least the preliminary one, that's more than enough to go ahead with that. And I think that it is a prudent idea when we're talking about $20+ million of taxpayers' money to ensure ourselves that we're not going to be encountering anything that's going to cost us more money in the long run, minus the excavation and things like that, but just to ensure that we don't encounter anything. Because if we go out there and we encounter wetlands, we're not talking about a couple $100 to remediate that. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars per acre to remediate those. And I want to make sure we don't do that. That's something we don't want to do.
Well, what is the Corps' role? Because I'm like Chris, I haven't heard their name come up in any discussions.
Well, the Corps typically defers, in many cases, to TDEC. They still take jurisdiction over waters of the U.S. TDEC will take jurisdiction over those same waters as waters of the state. Now, they both use the same guidelines, which is the 1987 Corps of Engineers Wetlands Delineation Manual. And it's standard. You can find it anywhere. And the person performing the delineation will use that manual in order to fully delineate the nature and extent of wetlands. And if there's a debate, they'll work it out with TDEC and say, okay, this area doesn't really extend this far. TDEC will verify that, and then you're done. It is an added step, but it's an added step that can be performed before the purchase of any property in order to ensure that the property that we do purchase is safe and sound and will not require any other remediation to be performed. And I think, like I said, that's just prudent on behalf of the taxpayers to do that.
Okay, you mentioned before we're trying to keep the environmental guys out of it because once they're on site, it unravels from there. So I think that's what Scott's saying. The same thing is, let's get the TDEC guys on site, let them confirm where we're proposing to put the building. Let's stay away from those wetland areas. And I think when he hears full delineation, that means we've gotten them involved. That's who it goes to for them to say, okay, I concur with what you're saying.
Sir, they're going to get involved whether you like it or not, and they're going to request that delineation whether you like it or not. So it's better to do it on the front end before the purchase is made, so we can ensure with that preliminary plan that we don't impact anything.
So if we lay out the site and we're not touching any possible wetlands, they're still going to require it to be delineated?
If you produce a delineation plan, they come out and confirm it, then yes, you'll have to stay away from those places. And that's your confirmation that they're not going to come back and say, you know what, we missed something. No, that's the confirmation right there. They will give that concurrence right there.
So that may be the rub, is full delineation versus we're not touching anything that looks like wetlands, so why do we have to delineate it, I guess is where Scott's coming from.
I guess what
I think where the larger misunderstanding may be is a full delineation is not something that takes months and months or even weeks to perform. It's taking the footprint that you're proposing or that's going to be proposed, that's already been laid out, and running transects on that site plan where there is impact, where there's going to be just areas of disturbance, and on that proposed area, transects. If we're only going to be building on, let's say, 4 acres total, it's just those 4 acres we're going to look at,
right,
not the entire 44. It makes no sense to do that. There's no need to do that because you're not impacting them. So it'd just be on the footprint itself, and a full delineation does require soil, not even soil borings, it's just shovel tests throughout the area on a transect to get a good clear picture of where, just like when you're laying out something in CAD, it's you've got like a topographic survey. Yeah. You're just taking known points and you're delineating out a boundary based on those known points. So if you start at point A and you have wetland conditions or soils, and you go to point B and you have it, and then you go to point C and you don't, then you use that as part of your delineation.
I think what Scott is confused about is because everything we've ever done in Tennessee or Georgia, we've never had to have a delineation if you do not touch, your construction site does not touch a wetlands area. We have to apply for NPDES stormwater retention.
Right, construction stormwater permitting is part of it, but that is a
that's not a
function.
Delineation, though.
Excuse me?
That's not part of a delineation. That's just a retention.
Correct. That's your sediment and erosion controls and things like that.
That's the mandated stormwater and erosion control.
Exactly.
But we've never had, unless we touch a wetland known area that's by all the floodplain and everything, we've never had to do that.
When the construction stormwater permit will be submitted later before construction begins, the regulators will look at the soil series throughout the area. They will look at the soils and the type of soils, and we already know we've got wetland soils on 3 sides. All the soils there in the middle are considered to be partially hydric, which indicate the potential for more wetlands. As long as the soils are there, the hydrology is there, it doesn't matter if the vegetation's there or not. You could have grass growing out there. It doesn't matter. Only 2 of the 3 criteria must be met according to the manual itself that's used for delineation. But in Tennessee, when you submit that permit application, they're going to request a delineation. And that's just my professional experience for the last 15 years.
Well, we'll get back with Scott and just try to explain what the discussions have been. But you've spoken with Scott?
I've spoken with Scott, yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Okay. What's the will of the commission here?
Let me be sure I understand. If we don't amend or pull that back off the table, the last resolution to go ahead with the delineation study would just continue, right? I mean,
if that motion that we passed last time stands, then we can't move forward with purchase the land because we motioned to do these things as part of moving toward purchasing the land. To be just blunt, honest.
Now, what were the,
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't have it in front of me.
I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, could we not make jail site selection contingent upon TDEC approval in these wetland delineations? And that we can do a jail site selection contingent upon that, and then any purchase offer would be contingent upon that.
Commissioner, that's exactly what the last resolution said.
The last resolution also had a line item about getting a letter from Corps of Engineers. Yeah. There were I don't have it in front of me. There were 2 or 3 items that we specified. And I know one was Corps and one was TDEC.
The 2 requirements, from the best of my recollection, was that a delineation be performed and a concurrence letter.
Teresa's got the let's hear what it, read it, what was the,
Number 1, the Jail Review Committee receive and approve a formal report that the site core samples affirm that the property is acceptable for industrial construction. 2, approval by the full commission at the January 10th, 2012 meeting to build a new jail facility. 3, the Jail Review Committee receives a formal letter from the architect or civil engineering firm stating the quantity of jurisdictional wetland located on that property. And 4, the Jail Review Committee receive a letter of concurrence from the Corps of Engineer and TDEC architect and civil engineer.
The only thing that I think it's a good resolution, except for the and. Would an or work just as well, Eric? TDEC or the Corps?
Yes. And I do believe you'll get faster response from TDEC.
hold on just a minute, parliamentarian wants to.
Again, and one thing that we do a lot, and I do not interrupt you on this, but we have discussed something that we don't have a motion on. And technically, you know, you're supposed to have a motion on the floor to do all this discussion. But we do that regularly in a lot of meetings. But in order to add the word or, it's the same procedure. Someone will have to make the motion to reconsider. Someone will have to second it. And in y'all's constitution, y'all specify that the motion to reconsider requires a 2/3 vote.
And the members present.
Of members present. That trumps parliamentary law, which normally requires a majority vote. But in the Coffee County Commission's constitution, y'all require a 2/3 vote. So that will mean that 14 out of 21 will have to vote for it to be reconsidered. Once that passes, then you can add the word or, you can leave it as it is, or, you know, whatever you want to do, and then there will have to be another vote to deal with whatever amendments you make to it.
This is again going in a circular argument. How do we know we want to reconsider if we don't know enough about it to reconsider? But for the sake of keeping this moving, I will make a motion to reconsider.
All right. And you did vote for it last time?
As best I remember.
Okay.
You may want to check the record.
And we need a second.
I'll second it.
Got a second. Okay. Everybody understands that it takes 2/3. Any discussion on this? Well, let's vote on it then. To rescind the...
Yeah, to reconsider. You're voting on the motion to reconsider this original motion.
Does everyone... I'm sure... All right, let's have the count. Okay. Yep. So we passed the motion to reconsider. Now, What do we need to do, Mr. Parliamentarian?
Open the floor for discussion, and you, Mr. Bricken can make his amendment, or anybody
The
else.
or,
wants to-
of adding the or on, okay.
I'd like to move to amend the previous resolution to insert the word "or" between the word TDAC and Corps of Engineers.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. And just for the sake of, Ms. Patton said it wasn't a resolution, it was just a motion. Okay. So you're saying motion? Motion, okay. Yeah, okay. Any discussion?
I just,
Okay. Commissioner Alford, and then Commissioner Byrd. No, go ahead, Commissioner Alford. Okay. Oh, okay.
all I wanted to do is make sure I understand what we're saying is that in order to purchase the land, we have to have a report on the core samples, which we've already got, and that the committee agrees is acceptable. This commission has to vote to build a jail, which we haven't done yet. And the third one is the one we've really been going over, and that is we need a letter from either the architect or the civil engineering firm telling us where wetlands are and where they aren't, and a letter from either TDEC or the Corps that agrees with their...
Only on the footprint of the building. Is that right, Commissioner Chant? Just
Right,
the
I would
footprint
recommend
of the
areas of
building,
disturbance.
not all the property.
Okay, just on the footprint where the building is
And
proposed to
I would
go.
actually recommend that it not say footprint of the building, but areas of disturbance. That would
Okay.
cover you better in the
Okay.
event that anything were to change in the future.
Okay.
Areas of disturbance, okay.
Okay. Now, Commissioner Alford?
I was just going to ask, does this satisfy both concerns, what Chris is and what your concerns were as far as being able to move forward? Does this take care of your needs or what your concerns are as far as the information that's required for the purchase? And does this satisfy what you need as far as the actual move into the process?
It does me, if someone can just refresh my memory, I think probably everybody else's also, was there on that motion previously, last meeting, a purchase amount not to exceed? Or was, I don't recall exactly what the purchase amount was, or is it, what is the purchase amount?
The purchase amount has always been $475,000.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think it was part of that
No.
motion, but was it? Okay, it was. No, she's reading it. She says
Yeah.
it was.
Good memory there, Commissioner Chance.
Yes. 475,000 is that the number that was, okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Duckett?
I'd like to point out that we had an engineering firm to come in who specialized in this type of thing to study wetlands and gave us a report. And I hadn't heard anything about that, but we didn't see anything there that should be that could excite us.
Okay.
That's true.
Could you read back that portion that we just amended, including that part of areas of disturbance?
You talking about the part where we're going to add the or in?
That
one that
plus
we're
the recommendation
Okay.
for the area of disturbance, not just the side of
Yes.
the building.
Are you talking about the motion now? Is that what you're saying?
The motion as it's been amended.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
don't
okay.
think it includes that area of disturbance.
Well, we've got the motion now to do the footprint of the building and what else, Commissioner Chance?
He said area of disturbance.
Area of disturbance would cover all of that.
Well, which would
footprint.
be the parking lot and...
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
That's, well, we need to make that amendment now. We'll add that as a separate amendment after we do the other
Or
one.
just-
I will be glad, as far as my original motion, if my second will approve, to, and there, again, where in the sentence structure, in addition to the or, the letter from TDAC or the Corps of Engineers saying that the area of disturbance is what, Eric? Is not affected or not?
Well, that
does not contain any delineated wetlands.
Does
Yes.
not contain any delineated
And
wetlands.
that will be the footprint of the building, the parking lot, and whatever else. Is that right, Commissioner Chance?
Yes, sir.
Call for
Okay.
question.
Object.
Mr. Chairman, if you got that settled, like on number 1, I'd also like to
Excuse
see...
me, I think you're asking for a second on your amendment, or
Well, he just-
or vice versa. And
He was saying that that's what he wants to do if whoever seconds okay with it.
And
Who seconds?
I did, and I say I accept.
Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
But I object to calling the question. I think we still have discussion going.
Are you through, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, on number 1, I think we need to clarify where it mentions properties accepted for industrial construction. I'd like to see us define that as jail construction as defined by our site plan schematic.
Okay. So we need Okay. The parliamentarian says we need to vote on this part, and then on Bobby's, that we can make that a second amendment. So we'll vote on this, and then we'll let you present that, and we'll get a second on and vote on it, on yours.
Okay. State the amendment we're voting
Okay.
on.
State the motion. Teresa, can you the best you can there, and
I think amendment by Bricken and second by Hines to insert or between TDEC and Corps of Engineers. And I'm not sure, does not contain wetlands. The area of disturbance does not contain wetlands.
is that right, Commissioner Chance? Did you hear what she said?
I did. Is there any way you can just read off contiguous so we can all?
Okay.
I don't mean to belabor it, but
That's kind of hard to follow. Amendment by Bricken and second by Hines to insert or between TDEC and Corps of Engineers in the areas of disturbance does not contain wetlands.
thank you. And I guess what I was really asking for, I'm sorry if I was confusing, was read the motion as it would, the whole thing as it would read as if it was done for the very first time. That way it contains everything plus those minor changes, so we read it all at once. So
You mean like 1, 2, 3, 4, the whole?
the original motion had, yeah, the
Number 4.
All right. Teresa, before you do that, the attorney wants to speak.
I think Rush, as he worded the motion, was to insert the word. I think what he meant to say was substitute the word or for the word and, because if you just insert the word, you're going to have and or and. I think you meant.
Is that the right? Is
I think
replace
that's what
okay?
he meant.
Okay. Okay. Now, Teresa, I guess now we need to read the whole original with the changes. Is that?
if you wouldn't mind all of them, please.
Yes.
Starting from the very beginning.
Yes, ma'am.
Chris Byrd, Chairman of the Jail Review Committee, gave an update on the jail site selection. Motion made by Byrd and seconded by Duckett to approve the purchase of a 44-acre tract of land located on Hillsborough Highway, adjoining the industrial park previously owned by the Robert George family and currently owned by Frank and Rita Henderson for the sum of $475,000. The funds to purchase the land will come from the previously approved $2 million capital outlay note, pending the following affirmative outcome of 4 conditions. 1, the Jail Review Committee receive and approve a formal report that the site core samples affirm that the property is acceptable for industrial construction. 2, approval by the full commission at the January 10, 2012 meeting to build a new jail facility. 3, the Jail Review Committee receives a formal letter from the architect or civil engineering firm stating the quantity of jurisdictional wetland located on that property. And 4, the Jail Review Committee receive a letter of concurrence from the Corps of Engineers or TDEC, architect and civil engineer. And now amendment by Bricken and second by Hines to replace the word and with the or between TDEC and Corps of Engineers in the areas of disturbance does not contain wetlands.
Is everybody clear now? Okay, are we ready to vote? Let's vote on this, and then we'll get back to Commissioner Brines. Okay. Now, Commissioner Brown.
Well, it's a little unfortunate Mr. St. John's not here tonight, but the number one here was talking about, I mentioned replacing industrial construction with, jail construction as defined in our schematics and, site plan. But, of course, Mr. Kelly was mentioning in regard to the building codes, and that may be the case. I don't know if our construction manager would like to comment on that and clarify.
Or architect.
Or architect, either one might want to clarify that for us.
Step up here.
Bobby, I think that one line there was we were waiting at the time for our geotechnical report. So I think that was the ideal is let's make sure the geotechnical report tells us the land's suitable to build on, which we got, and it is. So that's been done, and it is an industrial occupancy. So I think the wording of that one, we've gotten what we need from the geotechnical guys. Once we locate the building, which we've done now, we will get more geotechnical reports done for the actual building site. But that item one, we were waiting at the time, so that's done. That's been submitted.
Okay, so no need to make any change
I don't think
in that.
there's any need to make changes.
All right, thank you.
To address, while I'm here, to address the item about the letter from the engineer, that was the report we got from both PSI and Scott, so that item's been done as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Are we ready to go to the next item of business?
Motion. What you voted on and passed was to add the amendment.
Now we got to vote
And
on the whole.
if you're done, you got to vote on the whole thing.
All right. So now we need a motion.
No, you got the motion.
Okay, we just need to vote?
Right.
All right, do we need any more discussion? Any more discussion before we vote? Okay, if not, let's vote, please.
You're voting on the motion as amended. That's what you're voting on.
Okay. The one that Teresa read, right?
That's correct.
The one that Teresa read, the whole motion. Okay. All right, now we're ready to go to the next item of business. Ms. Patton? Number 11? That's A, isn't it? All right. I'll entertain a motion to accept the road list.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? If not, let's vote, please. Okay. 21 yes. All right. Ms. Patton?
Okay, 11B, build jail.
Commissioner Byrd? 11B.
This came from committee that we, the commission, we feel like there's enough information for the commission to, at this point, say yes or no, we are going to proceed with building a jail. That does not commit us to build a specific jail. All it's saying is, yes, we recognize the need. Yes, we have enough information to agree that a jail needs to be built. That's all this is for. Am I doing that rightly? Okay.
Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll second it.
You got a second. How about discussion? That's okay. Go ahead.
Maybe Mr. Walker needs to explain what happened in Grundy County when they spent $1 million to improve their jail and it didn't. Would you like to explain what happened up there?
What they did was house their inmates in Bledsoe. That was this time last year. That was for renovation. That wasn't because they shut down.
Okay, just for renovation?
They closed for about 2 weeks. They shipped their prisoners to Bledsoe and Sequatchie counties.
So what I'm hearing is they had to do it so they could do whatever renovations they had to do.
Yeah, they did some renovations to the current jail.
How long did it take them?
About a month.
Okay.
I have a question. So what you're saying, that was because of the renovations and not decertification?
Yes.
Correct.
That's what it sounded like you're saying.
Chris, a question on what you said there. When we're voting to build a jail, I guess in part of that, we're including the fact that we are then supporting the fact of a general obligation bond in doing that? Or is this just the concept that we need a jail?
Yes.
I think it's just the concept that we need a jail and that we've gotten enough information on the cost of a jail that it's in the projected cost that we thought all along here. I should ask Lee. Lee was the one that put this in the committee. Go ahead. Explain yourself, please.
The idea here is to get the commission on record as saying, yes, we're going to build a jail. Okay. This is important to getting the current jail reestablished.
Recertified.
Recertified. And we're working right now with a state agency that's just been just put in place that will help us to recertify our current jail. And every other agency that would come down on us, like the fire people and all that, would have to come through this one agency to get to us.
Okay.
But we need to be on record as saying, okay, yes, we're going to build a jail.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I guess the next question is, when would we look at how we're going to fund doing this? Is that something we would be...
Commissioner Bricken can speak to that.
My plan through Budget and Finance to be able, at our March meeting, to lay out the proposed financing costs for the jail. So, I mean, I agree with Lee, and I attended those meetings. This is somewhat of a goodwill motion or resolution just to show the Tennessee jail bodies that we are got the full intent to build a new jail. That meets the standards and relieves the overcrowding conditions of our existing jail. So it's pretty much a goodwill motion, but if it gets in the record and we can use that record to channel it on upstream to someone that looks more favorably on us, it's probably worthwhile. Because there's no way that we are going to escape building a new jail.
Yeah. Any other discussion?
This is that we're going to, not how we are.
Yes. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think one thing we have to look at for taxpayers of this county, there's probably very few things that, I want to spend taxpayers' money for any worse than a jail. It's not something we want to do, that we like to do. It's one of those things we just don't have much choice about doing. And the thing is, we got to look at the consequences to this county and the taxpayers if we do nothing. And I think what's been emphasized here, and a lot of people's been dealing with TCI and talked to them and everything else, and I think everybody understands that if we don't show initiative here and we show the intent to deal with this problem that we got, we expose taxpayers of this county to some potential dire consequences and some significant cost of doing nothing and not standing up and indicating our intent to build a new jail, as Mr. Brickman was saying, we don't have any choice but to build a new jail. Now, we do have an option. We can end up spending a lot of taxpayers' money to deal with the situation because we get decertified and the consequences that go with that. And there's a lot of choices we have to make here. It's not that we want to do this. It's just we got to select what's the best option that we have available to us.
Any other comments?
I've got just a general question for Commissioner Duckett. By passing a motion such as this, this governing authority, they've agreed by passing a motion such as this that's enough. Do we have something from them to say that is enough? Because it almost seems to me that having an 80% design, spending money, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars have already spent on the design? I think there's a committal right there to say that a new jail needs to be built. But by doing this, does it ensure, is this a requirement that they put onto us, or is this a requirement that we're putting onto ourselves?
Probably both. They would look very favorably. They'd look unfavorably if we elected not to build a jail. And these are the folks that can decertify, which already decertified, but they can keep us from recertifying our current jail. But if we go on record as saying, yes, we're going to build a jail, and we're not talking about how much or what kind or whatever, just say, okay, we're going to build a jail. That will work very well with this group as far as helping us to recertify our current jail.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure on that would be enough for them. That would satisfy some requirement that they put upon us.
I think
to say that's enough. So in effect, we pass this motion. They will recertify the jail. They will do that.
Well, as long as we do a few other things that they pointed out, we've got to do some work in the jail. But this will pretty much do it, don't you think so, Kerry?
Okay, and what would be those, just out of curiosity, what would be the other things that need to be accomplished? Just curious.
I think we have to do a little painting around the current jail and maybe a few more items to kind of make it look a little better, but pretty much, Kerry might want to respond to that since he's right there all the time.
If I would, see if Captain Watkins might respond on this. He could probably answer some of the questions better than I can.
Some of the things, like Commissioner Duckett said, was like doing some minor maintenance issues around the jail, doing some painting, some cleanup, things like that, alleviating some of the sanitary issues like some of the showers and toiletries around the facility there.
Okay, I understand. Is there any way we can add to it that, and add to the motion itself that this is a resolution, or I guess a motion in effect to commit to building a jail, but add it into the motion that it's not a motion to commit to any particular funding mechanism for the jail?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I thought that was for the design.
We're talking about a resolution that was passed 2010, which committed the utilization of 11% tax increase toward payment to Tullahoma, and then when needed for jail, the construction of jail.
Okay, so we've already got the commitment then, correct? Mm-hmm. Do we need it again?
Well,
sometimes it helps just pass it by.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Mr. Alford.
Fine. When we're talking about agencies and different organizations, it's always good for me to know what agency we're talking about. So what is the name of the agency that we're dealing with as far as who can perform all of these things for us?
We'll let Mr. Watkins.
Commissioner Alford, it's going to be the Tennessee Corrections Institute, which is the governing body over the utilization of the jails.
Any more discussion?
Just so I'm clear, we are reaffirming a resolution or a motion that was passed in 2010.
Yes.
Correct.
To build a jail.
We've never gone on record saying we're going to build a jail. That's where we need to be right now.
Okay, I understand better now. Thank you.
Okay. Let's vote, please. Nineteen yes and 2 no. Is that right? Okay. Ms. Patton?
11C, purchase property for jail.
I'd like to ask that this be taken off. We've already, in the previous discussion and pulling out the other motion and changing it, we've already addressed all of this. We don't need to beat that horse again. Unless y'all just really want to stay and beat that horse again. Yeah.
Okay. The parliamentarian says we don't even have to deal with that
Okay.
next item. Okay, so we're down to statements and announcements. So, statements and announcements, let's let the commission speak first, and then if the audience has, and then after this, we need to go and visit with the sheriff's visitation out there. Okay, go ahead.
Guys, I want to try to be real brief here because it came up in the appointment of the standing committees. I would like to see our legislative committee review our standing committees and primarily look at the education committee but I think all our standing committees need a set of purposes for that functioning standing committees, and I don't think we have those for each standing committees. And if legislative committee sees a standing committee that is not functionable, they should come to this body and ask for it to be withdrawn. And there's possibly some other committees that need to be elevated to a standing committees. And I would like the legislative committee to take that task on.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission?
I got a question. A while back, Rush, there were some motions concerning ambulance authority, and we were going to get some input from the state. And I think I'd just like you to give the commission sort of what we had the other night. Where do we stand on that? And I guess we're just waiting still?
Well, the CTAS group that said they would take it on said they couldn't get to it till the first of the year. We're at the first of the year, but I understand they've not contacted anyone from EMS or Mariana yet. So here we are 10 days into the year.
Commissioner, she said yes, they have.
So
Okay.
that's news, which is
Okay.
good. It's progress. So
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
I'd like to clarify, at what point can we move forward to purchase this property? What has to be satisfied before we can move ahead? Do we have to have another commission meeting to approve it, or can we move forward when these
To
conditions
purchase the
are
property,
approved?
I think.
Yes.
I think it has to be. We just voted on it. Go ahead, Commissioner Byrd.
No, I don't know. I think
Well,
I'm not sure if we have to. I'll be honest, I don't know the parliamentarian rules and all. We passed a motion that says we have to do X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all the full commission has to do. Once those are met,
We can buy the property.
I would agree with that. I mean, I would
Yeah.
agree with that 100%. As long as the criteria are met, the motion is then validated
So-
in order to execute.
I guess
Yeah.
to answer his question, though, it'd probably be March before we could do that, then it sounds like.
yeah.
Is that right?
Well, as I understand it, there are 4 criteria. We've met 3 of them now, and the 4th one is the letter of concurrence from TDEC.
Yeah, to put the footprint down
Yeah.
and let them look at it.
And let them
Once
and
we
tell
do
us
that,
once we get that letter, then
We'll
that's
be ready
the
to
4th
buy the
condition.
property.
We have authority then to buy the land, and so that's going to be a matter of whenever we can get Mackey and Scott
right.
to get with them and get TDEC out here to do that for us.
And the funding to do that would be the general obligations bond?
Yes.
To fund that?
Right.
And then we'll have to figure out how to pay
Right.
for those bonds later.
Once we get once we sell, well, I guess CL, you're here, we're CL. You could probably speak to that. What's the next procedure? I know there would be refunded on the $2 million if you want to. CL is our go-to person when it comes to the financing side of it.
Thank you, Mayor. C.L. Overman with Morgan Keegan. My understanding is the capital outlay note proceeds would be used to purchase the land, which are already in place and have already been approved. There was a question a few minutes ago as to what else would be required. A bond resolution, formal, structured, detailed bond resolution would be required to be passed by the commission before additional full funding could be taken into consideration.
Commissioner, did that answer your question? Commissioner Duckett, did you get your question answered?
I think so. I was wondering if we would have to wait until March, before we move forward, because that's really going to impact the construction if we do.
Well,
I think we only have to wait until we get confirmation, a letter of confirmation from TDEC saying that the area of impact, is acceptable and it's okay for us to build there. I think once we get that, then if what Mr. Chance says in a couple of weeks, we might be able to move forward with that. Depends on how quickly we can get TDEC to come out here and do it for us, and assuming they don't find any issues. That's why.
Okay. Go ahead.
So what this gentleman's saying, then it can wait till March?
No, my understanding, Rush, help me here, the funding for the land is already in place.
Yes.
In the $2 million that was issued previously. So your funds are
We don't
already
have
in
to
place
wait.
for that.
It's there.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the commission? If not, is anybody from the audience would like to make a comment? Step up, one at a time, I guess.
Thank you, and I won't take
Okay. Well, we're going to give you 3 minutes, and
I appreciate that.
well, we're going to go to the visitation, for the
Yes,
sheriff's.
sir.
Yeah, we're going to give both of you 3 minutes each. Go ahead.
Am I to understand that we do have to come back and vote to buy the land? So there will not be a vote to buy the land. Once this comes through, we're buying that land.
Once it meets its requirements.
It's not going to come back before the commission. Okay. The 76,000 square feet, right? 76,000 square feet? And that includes the future expansion area as well? No. How many square feet would that be? Okay, so roughly, all right, just an observation. Parking is about 2 acres with the site plan. I'm just curious. It's going to be more than 2? I'm just looking at the overall 44-acre thing. I know it's a dead horse with many of you, but I'm trying to figure out how 76,000 square feet is not even 2 acres of land. If you have a 4-acre parking lot, okay, that gives you 6 acres. And if your justice center ends up being the same size as the jail, which I don't know why it would be, because you're never going to house that many people at one time in that courthouse. We've got this down to less than 10 acres for both the justice center and a jail and parking. I just ask you to think about that because I'm sitting out there trying to figure the common sense in that. And you're having the footprint looked at for 4 acres, or maybe parking, maybe not. What happens if you come back later and find that the other 40 acres, you can't build on it? You've got 44 acres with 4 acres that you can build on, and the rest of it you can't. Plus the maintenance of the other 40 acres. So I just ask you to look at that again. You've heard me bring it up before. I do not feel that proper usability and feasibility studies were done on the existing site and the surrounding residential commercial area at that site, because that does give you additional acreage. The call to build up on the existing site was made to this group. The majority of the county commissioners ignore that call from the more fiscally conservative representatives. And I just don't think without the proper feasibility studies you can know whether you would save money or not, or spend more money or not. And that's in addition to the alternative housing that the Tennessee legislature makes available to us for DUI offenders and deadbeat dads. You don't have to house them in a TCI jail-sanctioned facility. You don't. They make exceptions for that. It's another way to reduce overcrowding. I just wish we could see, from the taxpayer standpoint, some of that creativity. I wish we could get more taxpayers involved in the process and actually have a voice on some of these committees. I don't even know if that's legal, but you know, it's just that there are some other options out there that other counties around us have made work. And I would be all for spending this money if it was falling from trees. Mr. Bryan brought out a good point in terms of what it could cost us if we don't move forward. No one is stupid enough, I don't think, in this county to suggest that we stop moving forward. But at the same time, I've yet to be able to find a jail that's getting a bill from someone for housing their inmates who's been decertified. They may have lost the right to house state prisoners, but they're still open for business housing their own. And lawsuits may come and lawsuits may go. Whether you're decertified or not, it's not going to stop them. And those lawsuits will fail or succeed based on their merit. So, you know, I just implore you to look a little bit deeper before you jump into 44 acres that may not even be usable beyond the few that we're going to have looked at. Just be careful with that decision because it's costly and the funding arm has not been identified. Bonds, we still have to repay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we do appreciate you coming up and saying something. We do appreciate you doing that. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, County Commissioners, I'm Claude Morris, a Manchester resident. The lady in front of me covered some of what occurred to me in listening to this debate. The thing that bothers me is we're looking at the footprint for the first phase of the jail. We've identified where there might be another pod that might require more parking, might require an outbuilding, and a future judicial center. It seems to me before we purchase 44 acres of land that has wetland on it, we would want to take the whole footprint, including a future judicial center, parking lots, and the outlying buildings, and have TDEC approve all of that before we purchase the land, including future jail pod as identified or other future jail pods. If you don't do that, you may build this, and as she said, find out when you go to build a judicial center or additional pods, you cannot do that. Just a thought to look at. I know you've already voted on all of this, but if there are issues out there, and it sounds like from what Commissioner Chance said there may well be, and you haven't considered, okay, if you need another 2-3 acres for a judicial center, can you even site that on that 44 acres? So it might be worth considering to have not just this current proposal, but here's a blocked out area where we might put the building for the judicial center, parking lots, the repair facility, and so forth, and take a look at that with TDEC before you spend almost $500,000 purchasing property. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, stand up.
Any success or time to